Hello everyone, I'm Terry Duke, and welcome to my channel. For the past few months, I've taken a break from Warband, mostly because I've covered all the mods I consider worthy of covering as of yet, but I've enjoyed doing special rankings in the past, if only to inspire people to try out a few mods from specific angles. And well, today, as the title suggests, we're looking at hardcore mods. Warband mods designed to be hard and punishing for those who enjoy that sort of thing. And if you also enjoy the content, well, subscribe. Now, when it comes to ranking these mods, it's inevitably going to be highly subjective. It depends on the player, your skills and strategies, and it also assumes no cheating at all. So with that in mind, at number 8, we have Out Caesar on the Hill, or ACAN for short. ACAN is a Roman mod. Specifically, the mod makes you Emperor of Rome at the absolute peak of its power, and with a full map of Europe, this means your empire extends from Western Europe all the way to the Middle East. As Emperor, you will immediately start with a massive fortune, a huge party size limit, and thousands of soldiers split across dozens of garrisons. Seems like a pretty easy start, right? What's so hardcore about it? Well, with great power comes great responsibility, which is essentially the central theme of the mod. As the ruler of a massive empire, a big emphasis in ACAN is the insane management of that empire. Having a big army is cool, but also costly, so you'll be spending some time managing tax policies and trade. You also need to consolidate your rule over the Senate, which is its own layer of gameplay mechanics. You also need to manage infrastructure, build improvements in your towns, and look out for disasters like disease, fires, and revolts. And on top of that, you can amass a massive army and either expand the empire or protect its borders from invasion. In that sense, ACAN is not inherently hardcore in terms of combat, but with virtually everything else, hence why it's on the list. If you screw up as Emperor, you will immediately find yourself with tons of problems that become increasingly harder to manage. So it's pretty hardcore, but not for everybody. But from here on out, we're talking about mods that'll mostly put your fighting skills to the test and encourage you to play the game somewhat differently. So at number 7, we have Bones of Ragnvald. In terms of mods in general, Bones of Ragnvald is already an amazing one. In this mod, we have a huge new world with lots of fantasy elements and lots of lore. But what really makes this mod stand out is the story. Not many mods have a central storyline, but when I was ranking these mods, Bones of Ragnvald got the top position for being fairly in-depth and intriguing, and keeping me busy for quite some time. In terms of hardcore though, the mod also has a few tricks up its sleeves, mostly through the world itself, which hosts a variety of bandits, fanatics, and monsters. As such, this is the kind of mod that will keep you on your toes, especially when traveling the world map, as a lot of these groups are genuinely dangerous, while others are just downright scary, and that applies even with a high level or a strong warband. It's not the hardest mod to play out there, but definitely worth a spot on the list. And yeah, beware the Haunted Forest. At number 6, we have Sparta. This mod is no longer available, although you will find it through a link on my Google Drive. You're welcome. Sparta is an immersive mod taking us to ancient Greece, specifically during the Peloponnesian War between Athens, Sparta, and their respective allies. The mod looks amazing, the items, the scenery, and even the combat mechanics that look surprisingly close to the traditional Greek phalanx that is central to the combat gameplay. But as said in my dedicated review, which you can check out for more detail, the mod is infamous for being difficult. Namely, it removes the ability to change how much damage you and your troops take in the options menu, setting it to normal. After that, bandit groups have increased in size and numbers, have been given much better gear, and actually use tactics most of the time, making them stupidly overpowered. And then, items in the game were designed to be way more expensive and also heavier, and then the size of armies have quadrupled from native, leading to huge battles. And that's Sparta for you. Lots of people have complained that the mod was too hard, but that's how the modder wanted it, and that's what we have. To be a killing machine in that mod is a mere fantasy. You'll quickly want to get troops to do the fighting for you, but good luck keeping them alive. This mod will test you. But not as much as number 5, which is Rust 13th Century Way of the Warrior. This mod I discovered last winter, and the first thing I noticed was just how insanely hard it was designed. So, Rust is a medieval mod that takes us to Eastern Europe as nations tear each other apart, and as the Mongols are about to invade. In this context, the setting is a little niche, as other medieval mods tend to center over the entire continent, but everything about the mod is designed to be cruel. Enemies hardly yield any XP, so leveling up through fighting takes forever. Getting loot after battle requires taking 3 hours to do so, during which anybody else can attack you. Armors actually protect enemies so well that landing a hit may not stop them in their own attacks, increasing your risk of getting hit. And getting hit causes bleeding, which can drain your life in just a few seconds. The only way to bypass most of this is by choosing to start as a ruler, where we get to experience the mod on a larger scale and enjoy the other features. But as a solo adventurer, good luck, you will need it. Number 4, Between Empires. Set in Europe, with an optional time range from the 1860s to World War I, Between Empires is one of the best gun mods on Warband, but playing as a solo adventurer, it's not really an option, you need to play as a ruler. And what makes this mod exceptionally hardcore are the battles themselves, especially in the World War I era. And we can break those battles down in 3 core aspects. The mod's addition of artillery, which can fire at enemies from across the map without having a line of sight. The weapons themselves, which are no longer slow reloading inaccurate muskets, but somewhat accurate semi-automatic rifles, and the addition of battle tactics like digging trenches. To really understand all of it, you need to try it out for yourself, but essentially, this mod makes battles as deadly as they can possibly get, and with a larger party size limit and plenty of fresh recruits available, the death toll goes up fast. Especially when attacking enemies, as the AI will always dig a series of defensive trenches that provide cover to their troops, and the only way to really attack is to either outflank the enemy as best as possible, which rarely works across open fields, or digging trenches yourself to get into trench warfare. The problem with the latter is that trenches need to be dug within firing range of the enemy, and that often means digging while sustaining casualties. And add on top of all that, the moral mechanic, which will cause your troops to break and run if too many die, and it makes battles in Between Empires massive, bloody, and almost impossible to win, unless you overwhelm the enemy with numbers, and even then, the cost is high. If you want to try your shot at World War I battles, this is the mod for you. At number 3, Brytenwalda. Brytenwalda is only one of the OGs in terms of total conversions. It was so good and popular that it led to the modding team creating the Viking Conquest DLC for the game, which was based on Brytenwalda. So in this mod we're essentially in the UK, but in the Dark Ages. The Roman Empire has collapsed, leading to centuries of infighting, poverty, and misery. And in this mod you get to basically carve out your own faction from a lot of relatively small ones, making the campaign both challenging and intense. But as a solo adventurer, assuming you enable all of the mod features, well, you're screwed. Most of the features seen in Rust 13th Century came directly from Brytenwalda, and pairing all of them together is practically suicide. Starting with the stamina mechanic. We've all had our moments of single-handedly taking on groups of bandits, but getting tired was never something you had to worry about. Running out of stamina in the middle of fighting though is terrifying, as it will slow you down, unable to run, and swinging your weapons very slowly. Add extra encumbrance from armor, which will really slow you down as well as make your stamina drain faster, weapons that can break, forcing you to pick others off the ground in mid-fight, and bleeding. That's right, you don't even have to be hit until the life bar is depleted. Getting hit will cause bleeding, which, like in Rust, will lead to passing out unless you can finish the fight in time. And you can't even run backwards to force enemies to line up. One mechanic, if enabled, will cause you to fall on your ass if you try it. And if you lose a battle, there is also a risk of permanent injuries, which will remove some of your skill points. Or in my case, if I eat some damn mushrooms during one of the many randomized events, that permanently removed several of my skill points, so word of advice, don't eat anything. Overall, this makes Brytenwalda one of the hardest mods to play, assuming you enable all of the features. Ultimately, that's the one redeeming quality for the casual players like myself. None of what I mentioned is mandatory. These are all features you can disable in the camp menu, which in of itself makes the mod a lot easier to play. But if you really want a hardcore experience, just enable the features and well, it was nice knowing you. Number 2, A World of Ice and Fire. If you're a fan of the Game of Thrones show, or even better, a fan of the books, then this mod is for you. In terms of mods overall, from the quality to the sheer size, A World of Ice and Fire is one of the best Warband mods ever made. But it's also pretty hardcore, as it borrowed many of Brytenwalda's features, all of which can also be found in the camp options, although it expands upon them with the full realism feature, which enables everything plus a couple of extra things. There's even a hardcore option for enemies dealing twice as much damage, while you only deal half damage, which is pretty self-destructive. But A World of Ice and Fire is also hard when it comes to building up a warband. In the mod, recruiting, maintaining, and upgrading troops is outrageously expensive. For reference, most peasant troops will cost well over 100 currency to upgrade just to the 2nd tier. Townsmen, for example, need over 400 just to upgrade to the next tier. That is unlike Brytenwalda, where only elite tiers and cavalry were expensive, but raw recruits were cheap and easy to get. And when you take into account the numerous, dangerous bandit groups out there, or worse, the ice zombies and White Walkers, traveling the world alone is dangerous, while building up a warband is exceedingly difficult. If anything, what this does is immerse you in the world of Game of Thrones even more. If you're gonna take anything from it, it's that this mod doesn't believe that because you're the hero, you're gonna win. You'll need to seriously prepare for this one, and plan each of your moves carefully. After that, trying to get your own warband going, let alone creating your own kingdom, is going to be one of the most difficult mods to do it in. And finally, number 1 is a mod I already talked about so much before it's become a cliche, but here it is, it's Perisno. Now, truth be told, Perisno is not the most hardcore mod. That would probably be A World of Ice and Fire, but Perisno is nonetheless brutal in ways that I personally find more enjoyable. The mechanics are not themselves limited. You don't risk bleeding or injuries, you will get all of the loot without extra risks, and you will level up in no time, as well as make money easily. But Perisno is hardcore from the fact that it probably has the most overpowered units of any Warband mod I've ever played. From the Knight of Doom in every low tier robber groups, to the high tier units in deserter gangs, to deadly factions like the Demon Worshippers or Holy Crusaders, the Knights in heavy armor that all the factions have. Units in Perisno are so overpowered from their levels, skills and gear that 2 years ago I made a dedicated video just comparing the most powerful of them, and they're just insane. In that sense, what it means is that by playing Perisno, it doesn't really matter what good gear you get, how much you've leveled up, or how badass and numerous your warband is. You are never completely safe on the world map from an exceptionally large group of elite units that'll just tear you to shreds. And if you somehow make it to a point where you have an indestructible warband, well, you're still gonna have to get ready for the Zan invasion, which is like when 10,000 elite soldiers just invade Perisno out of nowhere and just take over half the map. So Perisno is all about navigating the world map with paranoia, choosing your battles carefully, and having an absolute blast with the ones you do pick. And because of that, Perisno is hardcore, but it's also my all-time favorite Warband mod. And that's about it for today. So far we got the best historical mods, the best story-driven mods, the best fantasy mods, the best gun mods, and now the most hardcore mods. Is there any other type of ranking I should be doing? Because I have no idea. Just let me know in the comments if you have any ideas, and as usual, I'm always on the lookout for new Warband mods to try out, so let me know what your favorite mods are, and they might appear in future videos. Thanks for watching, and again, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.